Okay, well, it's the end of December, and we are in a winter wonderland here. Yesterday, in 24 hours, it snowed 2 feet, which for Northern California, that's really saying something. I don't think this intense storm has happened in probably 30 years. Well, maybe 20 years. So there's positive sides because we're going to have enough water this next summer, but there's also negative sides about living in the forest. I'm going to bring you in here, and you can see there's my shop, right? Now let's just go up, and we're going to see that there is a tree that literally has so much snow on it that it's now leaning toward the shop. And I'll give you a better shot in a minute. If it comes down, which so far it hasn't, it's probably going to take out a corner of the shop. So we'll be back in a second. Okay, well, there's the shop. Now, and right up here is the chicken coop, and there's that corner of the shop that's going to be wasted if this tree falls. Now we're going to just go straight up, and there's the tree. Oops. And it is leaning. I mean, if it fell right now, it'll fall right on me. But we can only hope that it doesn't fall. And of course, if it falls, it takes out this corner of the shop. I mean, if I was lucky, it would fall right in between the chicken coop and the shop. Bang, right there. And that would make me very happy. But, you know, sometimes you're lucky, sometimes not. But we're going to do story time. We're going to go in, sit next to the wood stove, and tell a couple stories. Okay, Nick Collier here, and it's story time. As you saw, the snow is pretty deep out there. The electricity has gone out about 24 hours ago. There's 60,000 people that are without power. So I'm not expecting the power to come on anytime within probably the next week. We lost our telephone too, which is, you know, not a real common occurrence. I think the phone's only gone out like once since I've lived in Nevada County, which is about coming on 50 years. This story is again about a couple of dumbass kids pulling off some stuff that, you know, they have no idea what they're doing. But, you know, we went through it. We had fun doing it and got caught up in a big mess. So, and the story starts again at Randy Black's little smoking den. And my buddy Kenny Wyman. Now, he was a tall string bean of a guy. I mean, just like all arms and legs. And we're about, 17 maybe, and hair out to here, and peace sign vests, and all the whole hippie setup. This is starting to get hot. I'm going to close this back up again. So there we go. And we're sitting in Randy's little smoking den, and toking on a cute couple of joints. And Kenny comes up with this great idea. He says, "I want to go to Mardi Gras," and this is late January or something like that. And I haven't got anything to do. I say, "Yeah, let's go to Mardi Gras. That sounds like fun." And he says, "Well, but how are we going to get there?" He says, "Well, turns out that my dad works for Southern Pacific Railroad. And in those days, and maybe even now, who knows, those days, whoever worked for the railroad, the entire family had free pass to get on the train and go wherever they wanted in the U.S. And so Kenny said, well, you know, I got two brothers, and they're not using their passes. So you and he was pointing at me, and Craig Johnson, kind of a football player kind of guy, you know, gone way over on the wrong side of everything, and Kenny. And he says, oh yeah. I said, well, how are we going to pass? You know, you got a photo there. He said, oh, well, just put a photo over the top of it and it'll be fine. Nobody will care. And I'm like, what are you talking about? He said, no, it's going to be fine. So okay, so we made some plans, and we got a little bit of food in a backpack, and hardly anything else. I think we had $5 to our name each, and jumped on the train, went to Oakland, jumped on the train, and as Kenny said, they didn't say a word. They didn't even look at the passes. They just glanced at them and got us on the train. So we ride the train from San Francisco Bay Area, from Oakland, down to LA, and it's an overnight run. By the time we get there, we're kind of hungry. So we get off the train and we spend as little money as possible, buy a loaf of bread and you know, some cheese or something like that. I can't remember exactly what, but it was pretty minimal. And you know, we had ourselves a little snack out on the front lawn of the train station. Now there was about a 4-hour layover in LA, and so we just kind of hung out, and train stations, at least in those days, were pretty much in the seedy part of the town, because they had been built, 50, 75 years earlier. And that part of town kind of fell apart around it. So we just stayed close to the train station. We didn't want to get in any trouble. And finally we get on the train going east. And it's going out through the Mojave Desert, into Arizona, into New Mexico, through Texas, out to New Orleans. Well, we're on the train that, by 11 o'clock in the morning, and we ride that train all the way, and we're still pretty hungry. And I have this old trick that I did when I was a pinball wizard at about 9. And you take a piece of fish line, and you take a quarter, and you light the end of the fish line, and then you just push it onto the edge of the quarter. And you can kind of hang on to the quarter, right? And then in those days, they didn't have an override for that situation. And so then you put the quarter in a vending machine, and you just slide it down until it clicks the sensor that says a quarter's gone through. Click, 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 however many quarters you need to buy whatever you need. And the trains had a full range of these vending machines. Of course, the food wasn't, they might have had sandwiches. I don't think so. I think it was mostly chips and candy and cookies and that sort of thing. But, we raided those machines, and we had plenty of food for the entire trip across, which took another 24 hours from LA to El Paso, Texas. And there was a layover in El Paso, Texas. We had to get on another train to get to New Orleans because the train was going north. So, and I think it was a 6-hour layover or something like that. And we thought, oh, hey, we're in El Paso. Right across the border is Juarez. We could go across the border. We could take our $15 and buy some pot and bring it across, and we'd have pot to go across the rest of the desert with, or the Texas and New Orleans. And oh man, that was a good idea. We thought that was just the grandest idea. So we all just walked on across the border and through the border guards, and we're all dressed in our hippie garb and having a great time, and walked into Mexico, and we were told that if you talk to a taxi driver, they'll give you everything you need. So we pulled up taxi driver over and got in the back and said, hey, we want to buy some pot. And this taxi driver, I guess there was no pot in town at that day or something like that, because he took us to about 6 different places, and each place had some semblance of marijuana, but we knew what it looked like, and we were like, pretty hip. And he'd come out with this bag of, tarragon, and the next place he'd come out with a bag of something else, and all of these herbs, but no pot. And of course we wouldn't buy it. And he finally says, well, there's no pot in town. Yeah, okay, fine. So take us back to the border. He says, but there's peyote cactus. We went, oh, cool, peyote, yeah, hey, let's do peyote. That'll be fun. Bunch of harebrained kids. I don't know. I'm amazed that I made it. So we go, he goes over to this place, and this old lady, the whole backside of her little shed is filled with peyote cactus. And peyote cactus, the buttons are on top of the cactus. And it's like, 6 or 8 little buttons. And then the cactus kind of looks like a big carrot. And we weren't sure what part was the edible part, the part that would get you high. So we took the whole thing. We took 2 each. We bought 2 each, and I think it cost us $10 or something like that. And we put them in our jacket pocket, and we were like, okay, now we'll just sail across the border back into El Paso, no problem. Yeah, we were, oh yeah, by the way, we bought some Dexies, little prescription bottle of Dexedrine, which was, kind of methadone. And each of us had a bottle of Dexies and 2 peyote cactuses in our jacket. And of course, we walk up to the border and we're just like, hey, we're cool, we're Americans, so we're gonna go in. And they say, well, come over here for a minute. They pat us down. Sure enough, he finds the peyote cactus. For some reason, they didn't find the Dexies. And they take us into a back room and they say, okay, strip down. We're going to check you for everything. And, we stripped down to our skivvies, but, being 17-year-olds and being boys and being on the road for 2 days, our skivvies were not that fresh. And the guy says, well, you got to, strip down. We stripped down to our skivvies, and we're standing there, and the guy comes in and he goes, well, take your skivvies off. I said, no, and he said, oh, okay, fine. So, and we had the Dexies stashed in our skivvies. So, he checks all of our clothes out and checks us out, and then he leaves. And we went, wow. Okay, we got away with it, but we're not going to get away with it if we go to jail. And the border guards were saying, hey, the cops are going to take you over to local lockup. And we got to get rid of the Dexies. So, being the stupid kids that we were, we thought, well, hey, we each had a bottle of 25 Dexies. We thought, well, we'll take a few of them just to get rid of them, and then just put the rest of them in a garbage can. I think we took 10 of them each. 10 Dexies. Dexedrine is the actual name of it. And why I didn't overdose and die, I don't know, but I didn't. And so they pack us up we put our clothes back on. They pack us up. They take us over to local lockup, and downtown El Paso. And it turned out that, and they put us in 3 separate cells because they thought we were gay. We found out later they thought we were gay and that they didn't want to have any sex going on in their jail. 3 separate cells, although they were not next to each other. And just about the time they put us in the cells, we started coming on to the Dexies, which was, pretty intense. And, basically chatterboxes all night long. We just like, talking all night long. And, by morning, for one, the rest of the inmates were not that happy. But, they were in their own cells. And by mid-morning, the jailer came to us, and he got me first, and he says, "Come on, we're going to take you over here." I said, "Okay, fine." And they took me to a room, an interrogation room, I assume. And I sat down, and here's a guy sitting across from me, and he introduces himself. He's the reporter for the local newspaper. And I was like, what? He says, "You're the first hippies. You're the first ones that showed up in Texas." He says, "So you're news." He says, "I want to know how you think, how you feel, what caused you to go this direction." And oh man, so I'm still pretty chattery from the Dexies, and I talk a blue streak for the next probably hour, and telling them my philosophies and all of everything that I'm, that I stand for, and peace and love and, and sex. So, and then after an hour, he's done with me. I go back to my cell, and Kenny gets to his turn. And then he goes back to his cell, and Craig gets his turn. And once that's all over with, they gather us all together. I guess they figured that we weren't gay and we weren't going to cause any trouble. And so the jailer takes us over to a main room. And there's probably, I don't know, 20, 30 guys in this room, 30 beds. And it's like, a room about the size of this shop, with beds around all the walls, and 20 or 30 guys staying there. And he opens the door and he shoves us in there and closes the door behind us, and we're standing there, and 20 or 30 guys, and most of them were Mexican Americans, or Mexicans that had been caught on the American side. Well, not most of them actually, but just some of them. And the other half of what they were heroin addicts coming down. And so there was a lot of really washed out, wiped out people in that room. And at the one end of the room, there was a small window. It couldn't have been any bigger than that. And it looked out on the distant mountains around Texas. And it was my only view of nature. Everything else was concrete and, that sort of stuff. And I hated concrete. So we spend the first couple of days trying to get ourselves settled there, and we realized that nobody is dangerous. Nobody's going to kill us or try to muscle us or whatever it is that they were going to do. And we realized that most of the people there were just regular Joes, just having a bad day or a bad week. And so we got to talking to them, and everything was fine. And the one thing about that jail was, and it was amazing, because whoever was in the chef's or the cook's, station that fed all of us was an amazing chef. And he cooked amazing meals. I mean, they were like the best meals I'd ever had to that point. Of course, remember, I'm only 17. And, to be all you could eat. And, it was interesting to me that they really kind of put on the dog for all of these guys that were pretty wiped out. So, hey, we're in seventh heaven. We're eating. Oh, by the way, that we went to the court and the judge couldn't find any reason to arrest us or to charge us with anything. So, and at that point, Texas had a kind of a blanket law that said, if you don't have any money, you're a vagrant and you're going to do time in jail. So he gave us 13 days in jail. And as I said, by the time we got to the third day, we realized everybody was pretty friendly and it wasn't going to be a problem. And we ate these amazing meals, 3 solid meals a day. And in between meals, they would bring in loaves of fresh bread, fresh French bread. I mean, just out of the oven. And they had a big tub of dark kind of honey stuff. I wasn't sure what it was at the time. And you could just break off a piece of bread and take and dip out some of that honey and eat it. And, again, we're in seventh heaven. Except for, of course, stuck in the old Paso jail. So we go through, I don't know, the next 10 days of hell, because I'm stuck inside of a prison or a jail. And, but, we made it, and it was, at 17, 10 days is a long time. At this age, 10 days is like a blink of an eye. But at 17, it's forever. And so, we went through the 17 days, and nothing really happened, and we got out, and Craig and Kenny said, hey, we're going to Mardi Gras. I said, okay, I'm not. I'm going back home. So I called my girlfriend, and I had her send me, I think it was $40 or something like that, for a bus ticket, a bus ticket back to Hayward. So I got on the bus and came back to Hayward, and it was probably, 4 or 5 years later that I realized what that stuff was that you could slather on the bread that was so good. And it was, and because I actually had an opportunity to use some of it, and it was molasses. And I couldn't figure out why they had molasses in there other than it's fairly inexpensive. And somebody explained to me years later that the molasses had so many vitamins and minerals in it, and a bunch of those guys were coming back from heroin, and they needed that stuff, those minerals. And so the county made sure that they had molasses and bread in that room so that these guys could get healthy again. Now, can you think of a county that would do that? I was pretty impressed. Anyhow, that's our story. Nick Collier checking out.